So here we are once again documenting the changing face of Bangkok. In this short episode we've got nightclubs, bars, cinemas, markets, plus we're going to be looking at the demise of the sexy movie. Remember those? Welcome to Vanishing Bangkok, part 6. I'm in what used to be Pantip Plaza, and it's now a food hub called Phoenix, or it could be Penix. It's a PH, and I'm not sure how they're pronouncing it. But gone are the days when this was the original electronics and IT hub. It opened in 1985, and this is where you came to get your hi-fi, your TVs, your video recorders, your computer stuff, the latest movies on video or VCD or DVD later on. And it was particularly well known for guys that would hassle you to buy what they called sexy movies, and they'd take you to one side, show you a booklet full of porn films, and they were 100 baht each, or 6 for 500, I believe. I'm not sure, I never used to buy them. But before opening time, every morning you'd see a queue of people outside clutching their computer towels to bring them here to get repaired. And all those days are gone, of course. I think the main IT stalls moved to Fortune Town. That's the place to go nowadays. So I'm going to have a walk around and see what's going on. As we're in the area, I thought I'd take a short walk down Petchaburi Road and show you the former location of the once popular Metro Cinema, which used to be just down there on the corner of Soi 13. It was one of many standalone cinemas in this neighbourhood. You had places like the McKenna Theatre, the President Theatre, the Paramount Theatre, the Hollywood Cinema, the Petchaburi Theatre. There are a few others that I can't remember off the top of my head right now. The Metro was what you call a second-run theatre. It showed mostly Western movies dubbed into Thai. In the early 90s it closed and became a 7-Eleven, and now it's the Metro Resort and Hotel. Pratunam intersection, hectic during rush hour. Avoid it at all costs, but you knew that anyway, didn't you? Anyway, we've seen the old Pantip Plaza, we've seen the former location of the Metro Cinema. I thought before we get out of this area, let's have a quick update on the old Pratunam market. The old Pratunam market, which dated back to 1961, was demolished 2.5 years ago, and in its final years it was pretty dead. Most of the vendors had moved across the road to the Platinum Mall. A lot of cats were made homeless by the demolition, which was sad to see. As for redevelopment, it's going to be turned into some kind of hotel retail complex, which is what you would expect on a prime location like this, and there'll also be an MRT Orange Line station here as well. In 1962, Pratunam intersection was expanded with the extension of Petchaburi Road to Klong Tan intersection, another 6 kilometres. And if you're not sure where that is, here's a map to give you an idea of the location. This new stretch of road was called New Petchaburi Road. So New Petchaburi Road was built for various reasons. Bangkok was an expanding city at that time, and this new street offered a place for shops, offices and businesses to establish themselves. Also, an entertainment zone was built for the many American GIs on R&R from the Vietnam War. These young soldiers needed a place to let their hair down and party, so lots of nightclubs, bars, restaurants, discos, massage parlours were built. And this became known as the Golden Mile, or the American Strip. In 1966, Thailand was hosting the 5th Asian Games, and new sports facilities were being built at a place called Hua Mak along Ramkhamhaeng Road on the outskirts of the city, 10 kilometres away. New Petchaburi Road offered a shortcut to this new sports complex. I made it to Ramkhamhaeng. I'm at the Sport Authority of Thailand complex. It's a lot bigger now than it was when they built it in 1966 for the Asian Games. Back then, they only had the indoor stadium and the velodrome, and I came here in 2003 to see a gig by none other than Ronan Keating. Some of you might be sniggering when you hear that, but I got free tickets, and the show was very good. So the indoor stadium is where they held the badminton and the boxing events, and they also had shooting and cycling here at Hua Mak. The shooting range is actually closed today, so I can't show you that, unfortunately, but I had no problem locating the velodrome. It had been raining, so the surface was quite greasy, which meant no one was cycling around. There was one guy braving it and going around pretty slowly. Well, as you may know, this complex also has the Ratchamakhaeng National Stadium. This is where Thailand play all their home games and they host lots of concerts, so you may have been here at some point. It was opened in 1998 when Thailand were once again hosting the Asian Games. And I came to see Thailand play Newcastle here in 2004. It ended in a draw and Thailand won on penalties. That was when Bobby Robson was our manager. And I remember sitting on some very uncomfortable concrete step seating, and the capacity back then was 65,000. There certainly wasn't 65,000 in the stadium to see that game. And then they replaced all the concrete step seating with plastic seats in 2007. And now the capacity is 51,560. So when they opened the sports facilities in 1966 for the Asian Games, this area would have been still pretty remote on the edge of the city. Lots of paddy fields, buffaloes, it was prone to flooding. And we were still 5 years away from the famous Ramkhamhaeng University opening in 1971. That brought vast numbers of students to the area, and it is still famous for that, of course. Lots of street food markets, cheap apartments, traffic jams. There's quite a few foreigners that have chose to make this area home as well. And the MRT Orange Line will open in 2028. That will improve transport links to the area. Last year I talked about the Ashton Asoke condo situation, how they were in the process of having their construction permit revoked and facing possible demolition because their entrance road wasn't wide enough going up to the front of the building, and the one they had encroached onto MRT land. Well, a couple of solutions were suggested at the time. One was to buy up the land on the other side of the building by Sukhumvit Soi 19. That would be very expensive, almost 4 billion baht, and would involve buying out the current residents, some of which may not be willing to leave. The other solution on this side of the building by Asoke Road would be to widen the entrance road, but the Siam Society stands in the way. The Siam Society dates back to 1904. This house was built in 1933 and has heritage status, but it's not this building here that stands in the way. It's the gardens and the old buildings there that make up the Kam Tieng House Museum and another old building with a branch of Black Canyon Coffee. If they were moved, then Ashton Asoke can have a legally wide enough entrance road. But the Siam Society has heritage status, so surely that can't be possible, right? I've just noticed something. The Kam Tieng House Museum has been announced as undergoing renovation, but if we look at this picture from a year ago, it looked absolutely fine. So maybe this renovation is a thinly disguised plan to move these buildings so Ashton Asoke can have their legally wide enough entrance road. If that's the case, then you heard it here first. If not, then I apologise for being so cynical. It's great when you see an old photo from the 1950s, you go to the same location today and the old building is still there. This used to be a place called Dino's Bar and Restaurant that opened in 1956, and despite the Italian sounding name, it was famous for its Chinese food. They had live bands, a jukebox, private booths so you can talk to the girls. It was popular with GIs as well. And next door to it used to be the Crown Hotel. That's only just closed down. and that is in the process of being demolished. Dino's Bar and Restaurant today is a flower shop. The last decade has not been kind to Sukhumvit Soi 22. It certainly isn't the place it once was, say 20 years ago when I used to come here. I think it started when the Holiday Inn was built on the corner of Sukhumvit, and since that time the whole block has been demolished. It's all totally new development. But that's progress for you, times change. Once upon a time, Soi 22 was just part of one long bar crawl that you could do all the way from Soi 33 to Soi 0. You were never more than 20 meters away from a bar or somewhere to grab a beer. Sukhumvit Soi 22 now has a few things to offer, but not on the scale of many years ago. When I used to visit Bangkok before I moved here, this city was still in full swing as one of Southeast Asia's top nightlife destinations. Clubs were open all night, there was no licensing hours, and it was a big draw for tourists. But then a certain Prime Minister got into power and that all changed. Thaksin Shinawatra launched a social order campaign which divided Bangkok into 3 nightlife zones: Silom, Sukhumvit and Ratchada. In these zones, everything had to close at 2 a.m. Outside of the zones, everything had to shut at 1 a.m. and get this, dancing was illegal. As we got into the mid-2000s, it got worse. You had midnight closing and police would turn up at clubs, lock everyone in and piss test everyone. Bangkok's nightlife scene would never be the same again. Old-timers will always tell you that that era of the social order campaign by Thaksin Shinawatra is what drove prices up of certain services on the Bangkok nightlife scene. I think you know what I'm talking about here. That was just one of the repercussions of those days. So let me know what you think in the comments. Has the Bangkok nightlife scene gone downhill in the last 20 years, or has it actually got better?
Now not flexible. Now not flexible. Informally flexible because the government changed the policy, and order to the police not flexible. So I don't know. I do my duties.
Well, that's news to me because in the past I've been able to go out all night and have a great time.
It's not so good because no music, no beer, nothing.
Everybody want 3 o'clock p.m. Everybody, tour, 3 o'clock tour.
No have money anymore for to need to everything for to pay. Just 1 o'clock, that's no good for some Thai people for work in the evening.
I think they're probably making a mistake if they're trying to do Bangkok's economy any good, because I think Bangkok's economy probably depends on the nightlife that goes on here at this time of night. Whether it's healthy or not is another question.
I'm going home tomorrow, and I close Thailand 1 o'clock, Bangkok 1 o'clock. What's that? In Sweden we have open 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning.
Or these people, they cannot live, you know. They have to take care of their living. That's why if you one o'clock is not enough. People, they go back home, how can this work? Like something like a disco, you know. If the disco closed 1 o'clock, there's nobody come in, everybody going back home.
I've come to Ramkhamhaeng, not the poshest part of Bangkok, although I'm sure estate agents will try and tell you otherwise. I've come to look up the former location of one of Bangkok's biggest ever nightclubs. Well, it's absolute chaos around here. A bus has just broken down over there, and a train is about to thunder past here. I'm right next to the Sukhumvit 71 train stop, as they call it. In the late 90s, when I was researching Bangkok nightclubs, I wasn't internet savvy, so I had to go to travel bookshops and look in guides to Bangkok at lists of nightclubs, books like The Lonely Planet. And Nasa Spacedrome kept popping up in these lists, so I thought, I've got to go there and see what it's like. But by the time I found the location, it had closed down and was a couple of years away from demolition. But some of you 1990s clubbing veterans may well remember Nasa Spacedrome. It was in this spot right here underneath the airport rail link. Nasa Spacedrome was opened in 1986 by a former gems dealer who'd been to clubs in London and New York. He wanted to open the first adults-only disco here in Bangkok, and the first rule was nobody under the age of 20 would be allowed in. Nasa was the biggest and most innovative club for its time, a 5,000 capacity space-age disco that was once the trendiest place to be. In just 2 months, Nasa managed to become the place to hang out. Music and film stars, politicians, and the creme de la creme of the high-so world would come and party here. There was a VIP booth with two-way glass so they could not be seen. Admission was 500 baht, and the showpiece was a large UFO with flashing lights that descended from the ceiling above the crowd. There were spaceships, strobes, smoke machines, dancers, DJs, live music, and it opened until dawn, like many Bangkok clubs did back in those days. So the club was built by a company called Excalibur Holdings on land rented from the State Railway of Thailand. The building was demolished in 2005 to make way for the airport rail link project. Excalibur also built Nasa Vegas Hotel around about 1999. That is still going strong. I've actually stayed there in the past. So very much a space theme going on around here with Nasa Vegas, Nasa Street, Nasa Spacedrome. The company that runs the airport rail link is called Area 1. And there is a story behind that actually, and I'll tell you that story. Back in 1969, the Apollo 11 astronauts were visiting Bangkok, and their plane was supposed to land at Don Mueang Airport, but instead they ran out of fuel and crash landed in the field just over here. So they named the area after that. and that bit is actually just a joke. Well, Nasa Street has never really lived up to its high expectations as a shopping destination, which was what it was originally supposed to be. It opened as A-Link Square around 2012, and they changed the name 18 months later to Nasa Street. And one thing I've just noticed actually since I was last here is the sign out on the street. It now says Nasa Street, Tonglaw, Ramkhamhaeng. So they're trying to make it sound upmarket, maybe to tempt people in to rent the spaces in the complex. I've had a walk around. There's a lot of old sort of dusty shops that have tried to open and then closed down. And recently there was a fire that damaged the first 3 floors. That will take a bit of time to renovate and reopen. And the fire was started on the ground floor, I think at one of the food stalls. Anyway, long may it live on, and maybe one day it may just live up to its expectations. I mean, after all, it has got a futuristic name, NASA. Well, there's a sign here on the 2nd floor that says Nasa Spacedrome is up the escalator on the 3rd floor, but it's blocked off at the top, so I can't go and have a look around. But that tells us that it was pretty obvious they were going to reopen. But I'm going to speculate here because this complex opened as A-Link Square originally, and it was called that for about 18 months. Then they changed the name to Nasa Street, and that is probably about the time they thought they would try and reopen Nasa Spacedrome, but obviously that never came to anything. So this is the old Oscar Theatre. You might recognise it. It has been used to shoot scenes for films, TV series and music videos. And before I knew the history of this building, I'd read lots of blogs and comments and articles online speculating about its past. But then I discovered Phil Jablon's excellent website, the Southeast Asia Theatre Blogspot, and that basically told me everything I needed to know. It opened in 1976, was a very popular cinema, closed sometime in the early 2000s, and then after closure it spent 5 years as a church. Anyway, I have been here before. Myself and Christopher G. Moore managed to gain entry when we were filming scenes from Bangkok Karma. Well, that just about wraps up Vanishing Bangkok Part 6. Please do subscribe if you haven't already done so. Like, share, leave a comment. If you want to support the channel, you can do so via the Buy Me a Coffee link on the screen up there, or you can join the channel and become a member. That just leaves me to say thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.